For most of us, sleep is something that just happens, and usually you don't have to put a lot of effort or attention into it. But what if we did? What benefits are waiting when you treat sleep with the same kind of preparation as diet, exercise, and the rest of your wellness regimen? Today we have Young Living's Executive Vice President of Science and Product, Mark Bartlett, to open our eyes to the possibilities that can come when your eyes are closed. Hello and welcome to Young Living's podcast, The Wild Drop. My name is Jacob Young, your host. Young Living is a world leader in producing and distributing premium essential oils, and this podcast will provide you with drops of information about Young Living, including stories, history, product information, lots of little fun facts, and even more. Well, Mark, welcome back to the podcast. We're super happy to have you. I love your nerdy scientist character. You just have so much information to share, so much knowledge to share, and you do it in such a fun and interactive way. And I think the best part about you is you're a scientist that explains it so well that everybody understands it, which I feel like is the hardest part for a scientist sometimes. So,
thanks. Well, it's good to be back. It feels like it's been a while. So, yeah, I've got some things to catch up on.
Well, great. Let's catch up on them. We've recently launched a brand new product at convention, Deep Night Essence, which is fantastic. And we'll get into that a little bit. But I also know there's a few other projects that have been going on behind the scenes along with that, and would love if you kind of touched on them and shared them just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we launched the whole emphasis at the last convention was sleep. So launched a few products, including a diffuser, right? Mm-hmm. And so why? Why have we been doing that? Well, we've been working on it for a couple of years. I know we already had a sleep product at Young Living, but man, it deserved to have some new light shed on it because of some new science that has just arisen in the last decade, new stuff that I'd love to share with you.
Yeah, please do. I'm super excited. I know the focus was sleep, and the theme this year was kind of sleep as far as the products are concerned. I myself am not great on the whole sleeping part. I am a video gamer at heart, so I am wide awake at some demon hours. It is really easy for me to stay up very, very late at night and wake up kind of early in the morning. But after kind of hearing you talk convention and sharing the emphasis on why sleep is so important, made me take a step back and realize, okay, maybe I should focus on this just a little bit more.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions,
Please
Jacob.
do.
So when you're on these all-night benders with your video games, how do you feel the next day when you have to turn up for work?
I definitely would say that I'm very cloudy as far as the mind is concerned. Mm-hmm. Not clear, not precise. Energy levels are a little bit lower than usual. I would say I can function well enough to do my job and get to the office and back.
There you go. It's because you're so young. Maybe youth is on your side, but I don't know if older guys like me can get away with it, right? Or at least not for very long.
Yeah.
And actually, it kind of gets to the heart of the question of why we need to sleep. I mean, scientists, when they think about it, have been asking that question, why do all animals, including humans, have to sleep? Mm-hmm. It feels like a weird part of our design. Why can't we just stay awake? Why can't we burn the candle at both ends? Mm-hmm. And so the immediate answer would be, I don't really know, except I feel awful when I don't sleep. I feel sleepy the next day. Maybe, I know I get kind of crotchety.
Yeah.
That's Australian for bad mood. Not very
moody.
It affects my relationships. It affects my work product. And you're going to college right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you got an exam the next day, you don't stay up all night playing video games. That's fun, but you're going to pay, right? So there's an immediate impact of not getting enough sleep, and we all know that. But it still goes to the heart of why? Why are our bodies designed that way? And so it seems that we have cracked that nut only recently. And it comes through some studies that people are doing. Scientists have been studying about what the brain does while you're asleep and what it does while you're awake. Your brain is incredibly complicated, and there's all this metabolism going on in your brain. A lot of the energy that you use up during the day is going on in your brain, right? There's all these metabolic reactions. There's these nerves that are making connections. It's kind of like you have a million generators in your brain. You need energy for that, right? ATP that's burning up and producing sort of side products. You've got proteins that are being cleaved. You've got metabolic reactions that are leaving these byproducts. And during the day, they're all building up. In fact, one of the reasons why you start to feel tired towards the end of the day is because of this buildup of a product called adenosine, which is the end product of all of these bioenergetic reactions. So you start to get sleepy. That makes you sleepy. And you've got all these metabolic byproducts that are built up in your brain. So scientists for a long time thought, well, the reason why you sleep then is so that while you're sleeping, you can get rid of that. But how? And scientists thought, well, enzymes are chewing it up. And so if you don't get enough sleep, the brain hasn't had enough time to get rid of it all. And that's why sort of it's still there. But here's what happened in the last few years. There was a scientist named Micah Niedergard. She was asking this question, like, how does the brain clean things? We know about this system called the glymphatic system. Most of our brand partners probably are familiar with that. Mm-hmm. This is that system in the body. It's not the blood veins. It's not the blood arteries. It's actually a completely different system that kind of collects the debris and stuff and dumps it back in the heart. It's a really important part of the immune system because there's a lot of immune surveillance going on, right? So we've known about that for a long time, but that stops at the brain. So, Dr. Niedergard was asking the question, I wonder if we've got something similar in the brain. And I suspect that the fluid that does it is the cerebrospinal fluid. You've heard of that stuff, right?
Yes.
So our brain floats in it. It's mostly water, but there's some proteins and glucose and electrolytes and things in there. And our brain floats in it, which is great because if you sort of get knocked in the head, the brain is kind of floating in that fluid. And same with the spinal column. So that cerebrospinal fluid is kind of interesting, and that's where she started. So she had this assistant that was training mice to sit very quietly on the lab bench while they did some really new kind of techniques of brain fluid imaging. So they're trying to sort of look at the cerebrospinal fluid. And nothing much was happening. They were following the flow of cerebrospinal fluid. And this researcher had trained the mice so well that sometimes they get so relaxed while they were being studied that they'd fall asleep. And then something happened. They suddenly saw like this surge in the cerebrospinal fluid going through the mouse brain. And they realized something really weird is going on there. And, scientists that have been looking at the brain have just been focusing. I'm a cell biologist, so I look at the cells. I'm interested in what's going on in the cells. And if I'm studying the brain, I'm like, what's going on with the cells? And this debris that's building up, which enzymes are breaking it down? How's it work? What Niedergard discovered was that there's a certain type of cell in the brain called the glial cell, and it fills up the spaces between all these brain cells. So there's no space there really, right? But when you fall asleep, especially when you're in very deep sleep, these glial cells shrink about 60% and they leave these channels open. And the neurological system works with the vascular system and actually just pushes the cerebrospinal fluid at quite a great rate. It's this neurovascular sort of collaboration, just flushes the brain out of all of these toxins and things that build up during the day. It's really quite fascinating how this works.
Wow, that is extremely fascinating. So as far as why we need to sleep, it's a reset. It's a flush of the system, essentially.
It's detoxification, yeah. Like there are other things that are going on during sleep, of course, right? And we should touch on that because I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah, please do.
When you're awake, like if we connect electrodes to your head, for the brain it's called an EEG. Mm-hmm. And when you're awake, you have sort of brain activity that's kind of high frequency. It would be called beta waves, or if you're like super active and focused, it's delta waves. So high frequency, short wavelength kind of frequency stuff that's going on in your brain. It's an electrical frequency, right? You probably like to listen to music. Yeah. If you converted that same frequency into sound waves, it would be kind of like deep bass, kind of that level of frequency, like 30 to 100 hertz. Mm. So let's say you close your eyes and you start to relax, diffuse a little bit of lavender. Now you're kind of feeling like, I'm not sleepy yet, but I'm pretty relaxed. Okay, that's alpha waves. So the brain wave, you can measure it. They slow down. It's a slightly sort of slower frequency, slightly higher amplitude wave. Now it's getting like super deep in terms of frequency, not even audible, right, if it was sound waves. So now you're getting relaxed, and now you drop off to sleep. Now the brain waves change again into these theta waves. This is kind of your first stage of sleep. They call it non-REM 1, and then it goes into a deeper sleep again called non-REM 2. It's really quite fascinating because, again, lower frequency, now you're asleep. then suddenly you have these weird things happening on the EEG. You get these like spikes of activity of high frequency. They call them sleep spindles. And scientists wondered, what the heck's going on? And these sleep spindles are an indication of sort of electrical zapping that's going on in your brain that is about memory consolidation. So think of it as sort of the brain is pruning out the memories and things that you don't need, and maybe welding together and sort of re-securing some things that you do need. Let's say, I don't know, you learn a new sport and you've just gone crazy doing that sport all day. You've learned some new muscle movements, some new things. The brain is going to say, well, I need to consolidate those memories a bit. And then it might be like, well, you haven't thought about that stuff that you learned in math class 2 years ago much lately. So we're going to prune that out. Because the brain is all about like a tight space and high efficiency. So it's just going to make sure that, you just remember the things that you need to. That's why memory is not a perfect thing. There's another thing as you get into that deep sleep that they call K complexes. And this is a very short burst of a biphasic wave. And that's actually about protecting the brain kind of during sleep so that every little loud noise doesn't wake you up, because sleep is so important. So here's where it gets to the fun part. Now you go into what they call slow wave sleep, or N3 sleep. This is the part of sleep, the deep sleep, where you get the lymphatic system that opens up and flushes the toxins out of the brain. Very cool. Then, do you know what happens next? You go into REM sleep. And I think everyone's heard of REM, right?
Yes. Actually, I know that's usually the most important. So.
Yeah. REM was like one of my favorite rock bands back in the 90s, right? And it's like, it's this random eye movement, right? And they first discovered it in babies because they were watching them sleep and they saw their eyeballs moving under their eyelids, right? And what's that all about? Well, you're dreaming. And it's just, even that is fascinating, because what happens is actually you don't want to act out on those dreams. And so the brain, actually at the base of the brain, it paralyzes all of the muscles in your body. It's called atonia, muscle atonia. So you're actually literally kind of paralyzed while you're dreaming, so that you don't act out those dreams and start like running in your bed or running around the house or doing crazy stuff. It's so cool. And then it goes back into non-REM 2, and then slowly get back into deep sleep. So in a good night's sleep, you should be going through 5 or 6 cycles at least. It's called sleep architecture, of this thing that is primarily to flush out all of those toxins in the brain. So I guess really what that does, to me, the reason why that's so fascinating is because now sleep is not just about how you feel the next morning or how well you do in your exam. What does it mean now to you, Jacob, hearing that?
Oh, that would definitely mean, how I'm able to live the rest of my life healthily and well.
You got it.
And I just think about my mom, because she's the perfect example of taking care of your body, and your body will take care of you later on in life.
Yes.
And there's a lot of new things that she does, that she reads about, that really improve health, improve wellness, and she's always willing to try them, no matter how gross in taste they may be, how difficult and challenging they may be. I know one of hers that she's been doing for a long time now is she'll take resin and put it in water and let it soak for about 2-3 weeks, and then she'll drink the frankincense resin water.
Yeah.
It is really strong.
Yeah.
Really strong. On top of mineral essence and wheatgrass and all this stuff. Let's just say her smoothies are smelly enough to make anybody run away in the opposite direction. And I know another one for her, and my dad has talked about this a lot, is the importance of sleep as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's great that we've kind of come full circle and talked about this.
Absolutely. And, sort of just digging in a little deeper to this long-term benefit. We talked about how you feel when you don't sleep, and you kind of tend to think that sleep is just about the now. Now we realize, right, that as I mentioned, you've got tau protein, amyloid beta, all of these things that are byproducts of the day's thinking and working in the brain that need to be flushed out. And those of you who are sort of have studied these things a little bit, they might be familiar words to you. We know that these, as they build up, form these plaques in the brain and lead to sort of cognitive decline or neurodegenerative issues. So we shift now our mindset. Sleep is not just about how you're performing on your exams or at work the next day or your relationships, but actually about your long-term cognitive health. And these days, there were certain things that people were afraid of, and still are, I suppose, in terms of our health in long term. You just say, I don't want to get that condition, that cell issue. now we're starting to think more and more. You talk to anyone that is closer to my age, maybe even people in their 40s and 50s who are now looking after their parents, they realize that the brain, cognitive health, memory, all of those things are probably the most important thing that you take with you into sort of your older years. And the work starts now.
Yes.
Good sleep now.
If you can be proactive instead of reactive, you will reap the rewards later on. Absolutely. So definitely to be ahead of it rather than behind it.
Right.
And that's what's so great about the new product. Well, all of the new products that we've launched recently that go hand in hand with sleep. And I think it'd be great to kind of start with Deep Night Essence.
All right. Yeah. So it's nice to get a natural, I guess, use nature to help you. Right? And Deep Night Essence is an example of that. I think one of the coolest things about this product is that it is that we use a spearmint extract. But the spearmint is not the spearmint that maybe our oilers think about the most, right? When you think of spearmint, you think, oh, that's a delicious essential oil aroma. Love it, right? And it's a flavor that they use in foods and things. But, you know, we're also farmers, and we know that actually there are lots of different species or cultivars of the plants. And if you look at spearmint, there are at least 300 different cultivars, and there are really oily cultivars. Those are the ones that we'd use for our essential oils. And there's a continuum right down to the other side of the spectrum in these cultivars of spearmint where there's hardly actually any oil in them, but they're very rich in these really special polyphenol molecules. Kind of like the same structure that you'd find in green tea. You've heard of green tea polyphenols. These are a little different. And these have been studied and shown to be actually very good for mental cognition and focus, but also relaxation and sleep. So the Deep Night Essence focuses on this fantastic polyphenol extract from spearmint. We also include real spearmint oil in it and also lavender oil because we know their benefits. But this spearmint extract is great. And, I should mention here that just because you see an ingredient on a bottle doesn't necessarily mean that the company has used the level that was studied to provide the benefit, right? So the level that was provided to give the benefit of sleep is actually provided in this product of Deep Night Essence. So wonderful product just to have nature sort of help you a little bit with that sleep cycle.
Absolutely. And I love that you shared just because it's on the ingredient deck doesn't mean it's the best kind of ingredient,
right?
But rather just the ingredient itself. And that's always been such a big priority with any product that we've made, that it's the best ingredient specification, whatever it may be, that you're getting the best in any product that you have. And that's what's also so amazing about some of our products is some of them stand the test of time, where there's nothing better or new that's currently out there, and there might not be for a few years down the road. But when there is, my dad would always want to make sure that you have the best of the best, that if it can be made better, it will be made better. And so I love that you guys were able to discover and find that ingredient and put it in there.
Yeah, if your dad were here, I'm sure that he would. And, Mary I often go to Mary and I'm a little bit nervous sometimes because I say, look, Gary put together so many amazing products. And I say, Mary, but I feel like this one can be improved a little bit. And Mary will say, well, you know what? If Gary were here, he would tell you, if you can make it better, make it better. So, obviously we check in closely with Mary. We're following the science. We're doing exactly what Gary would do. And again, using nature to help us rather than sort of fighting against nature. And, it is important to mention that there is this thing there's this new science of chrononutrition. Not sure if you've heard about that, it's really, this is just about sort of supporting the sleep architecture, which is what I believe that this product and the other things that we've done are doing. So there's a word that comes up that your mum would love because she speaks fluent German, right? It's Zeitgeber. And Zeit is German for time, Geber is give. So Zeitgeber, people who study the science of sleep and chrononutrition use this word because there are certain things that help to trigger or give you time. And one is light. So there's a certain part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This is the part of the brain that can detect light light through your eyeballs basically sends that message to that part of your brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, that tells you, hey, it's time to be awake. So, that's kind of interesting. And another Zeitgeber is food. So actually, if you are having trouble sleeping, there's no magic product. I mean, Deep Night Essence is great, formulated to help you, but there are things that you need to do. It's called sleep hygiene, supporting chrononutrition, following the Zeitgebers, meaning, when it starts to get dark, it's time to sleep. Don't leave the lights on. Don't be looking at your phone before bed. And another really interesting thing is as the light goes down, guess what goes up? Melatonin.
Yeah.
So the pineal gland starts to produce more melatonin. And if you're looking at screens or lights, it's suppressing the melatonin, which naturally will help you feel sleepy. So, we try to follow good habits. Don't, that would be probably a negative for midnight slacks and for staying up late watching video games. But the light will keep you awake, I suppose, while you're playing them, right?
Yeah.
And that you're probably going to ask next, okay, tell me more about melatonin, because we used to have that in our sleep product. Why did we take it out? And the answer to that is more and more people are becoming concerned that maybe they're depending a little too much on the melatonin. It's also very hard to sort of find the right time to have it. We do have another product that's even got more melatonin in it, right? It's one of our I think it's ImmuPro.
Yeah,
maybe that's the product, right? So if people really love the melatonin, they can keep taking that product. We've taken it out of this product just because of feedback that we've had from our brand partners, and we listen. Another thing, though, is that we also launched a magnesium product. Magnesium is an incredible ingredient, responsible. It actually plays a role in every single metabolic pathway in the human body. It's a cofactor for more than 300 enzymes, and it helps with all sorts of things. But sort of regulation of neurons and things like that is one part of it, and that's why people seem to like it for helping them sleep. And melatonin is regulated somewhat by magnesium. So there's another way to help your body to produce melatonin naturally.
Fantastic. So we talk about light and how it really plays into the factor as far as sleep. The sun comes up, your body knows that it needs to come up. When the sun goes down, your body starts kind of unloading everything that it acquired from the day, and you start to feel sleepy and whatnot. I would love if you kind of shared what makes this new diffuser so magical and why it pairs so well together with all the other products that we launched as well.
Yeah.
This is such a full circle, hand in hand, you can't have one without the other kind of thing. I just love the extent that we've gone with sleep and the importance of sleep and how it all ties in together.
Yes, the new diffuser. I think we're just calling it the Wake Up diffuser.
Yeah, it's a beautiful diffuser.
I want to call it the Zeitgeber diffuser. Right? So it's great because it's got this really large panel bigger than a grapefruit, right? It's a pretty big panel on it that is about light. And so, as you sleep at night, it can get more dim and kind of give you a natural sunset, or kind of makes it feel that way. And as you wake up in the morning, instead of a nasty alarm, the light will come on. Maybe you can set the alarm as well. But it's really nice, brilliant, no pun intended, because, it does remind you that light is a Zeitgeber for sleep. The other thing is, of course, it's got 2 places where you can diffuse your favorite oils. So whatever oil it is that you love to go to sleep to, you can put that in there, and you can sort of be diffusing oil while you're sleeping, and the light is dimming. It's just so nice. And then in the morning, maybe you're waking up to your favorite wake up, like peppermint or something, and the light is getting brighter again. So it's a beautiful reminder and a beautiful support, again, for that sleep architecture, that chrononutrition.
Yeah, I've definitely realized recently when we've gone on camping trips, I don't usually have to set my alarm because my body will naturally wake up to the light. And I've tried to implement that into my everyday life, because usually when I'm back at home, I have to set an alarm. But maybe it's also because, I don't have the distraction of video games or whatever it may be. And I've noticed with the Wake Up Light diffuser that it kind of took me back to the camping experience and kind of helped a little bit with that. So that's been really big for me. And another thing that we don't necessarily have a product for, but one thing that's also helped me a lot is the blue light glasses. I've noticed I always wear those as much as I possibly can, and especially as it starts to get dark at night, to make sure that it's not counteracting the melatonin that my body's naturally trying to produce.
Yeah.
And it makes a significant difference. So
yeah, before I go comment on that, a reminder also that the Wake Up Light, you mentioned the Wake Up diffuser, you mentioned camping. It has sounds from our farms, right? Yes. So you can hear birds from Ecuador.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, on the light thing, it's really interesting. And that's actually, this is another plug, I suppose. I've been interested in carotenoids for years and years. And, we have this incredible product called Illuminize that has these carotenoids, lutein and zeaxanthin, that are so important for protecting the macula. I wondered, and I did some research on this, like, is there any evidence that having the full complement of these carotenoids in the macula also helps with your ability to, we know that it helps with blue light and protects your eyes, because blue light is the highest frequency radiation. It's closest to like UV, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's important to protect our eyes. Does it have any impact on sort of melatonin and our ability to sleep? I'm not sure that the evidence is there yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years they discover a connection there. And that's why another one of my favorite products is Illuminize, of course.
Yeah, no, that's a great connection to look into, and I'm sure our science team will dive into that as well.
We will. Might even do a study.
I love studies. Well, it's fantastic that you're sharing all of these products. I guess kind of what are your thoughts on the next steps and how to kind of progress this journey? With sleep, does that also mean for a protocol of when we're awake to kind of help with sleep? What's your recommendations, doctor?
Well, I've mentioned a few things today, right? Sort of chrononutrition and the things that we need to do to support sleep. I've mentioned that, yes, we have some wonderful products that are really sort of helping to remind us how important it is to sleep, and that it's not just about how you feel in the morning, but actually how you're going to feel in 10 years, 20 years when you're 80 or 90, right? Having a sharp brain, that's how important sleep is now. No product is a miracle worker, right? No product is a magic pill. Again, these products that we've launched and we've done some really good science on and given you the right levels of really good ingredients, they will work better if you work with nature. And so that means as I mentioned, light is the Zeitgeber. So follow what we call sleep hygiene. That would mean, as the night comes, then start to slow down a little bit. Stop eating, because that's another Zeitgeber.
Disconnect from electronics.
Right? Disconnect from electronics. If you must use your phone, put it in night mode, because that has been shown to sort of protect and not inhibit melatonin quite so much. So you want the natural levels of melatonin to increase and sort of disconnect that way, watch the light, and then get sleep. And, do your best to... you really kind of have to plan ahead, right? Rather than leaving sleep as sort of a last-minute thing, trying to get to sleep at the same time every night is super important. Creating those good habits are going to pay off for your future brain.
Yes, absolutely. I know from my dad, he always talked about, think of the products as a tool, right? And there's no tool that can fix every single problem that you see on the car. But there's a tool that fits a certain wrench, a certain nut, whatever it may be. And the products are kind of that way. If you need a 10 for a 10 or an 8 for an 8, you know what product goes hand in hand with that. And it's always better to be proactive than it is to be reactive, and to kind of start that habit, to start that process. And it will go a long, long ways. I mean, like I said, my mother is the perfect example of that, because she's been doing a lot of these things to protect her health and her wellness and her cognitive function for years, because she knows what can happen if she doesn't, and she does not want that to happen. And so she's being proactive about it, which is just so great and so fascinating to see, that it does work, that a lot of the products do work. And so I know for me, my takeaway from this is, and I kind of already know this, but like I said, after listening to you talk and convention and just the science and the research behind it, is one, I need to probably go to bed before midnight, which I do almost on an everyday basis. Start to slowly disconnect and unwind, once the sun starts to go down, and just really, really focus and emphasize on the sleep that I get. I would say I fall asleep pretty quickly, so that's a great part. But I struggle with my alarm. I anticipate my alarm, and so it causes a little bit of anxiety, towards the early morning hours of making sure I don't sleep past my alarm. But the wake-up light's been pretty helpful in that regard as well, kind of simulating when I go camping and whatnot. So that's been really fun.
Yeah, I love that. When the light comes on, I sleep right next to the window, and it's open.
Yeah.
And I pretty much wake up with the light in the morning. So yeah, I've I've what do you call transcended the alarm. And I think our wake up light might help us, more people, to do that. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your knowledge, your passion, everything that you do. Always love having you come on and share your excitement. It's fun to hear you talk about all the projects and everything that you're doing, because you do it with so much passion. And like I said, you have a great way of sharing and telling the story, which is not always easy for some people to kind of take in the sciencey information. So makes it really shareable, makes it really fun and exciting. So excited to have you on the podcast once again.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And thank you for tuning into this episode of The Wild Drop. Remember, you can listen on iTunes, Spotify, on YouTube, and our website at www.youngliving.com. Don't forget to oil up Young Living family. This is Jacob Young, dropping out. Take care.